Hey there, lady. Welcome back to the podcast. Today I'm sitting down with my guest, the diviner, writer, yogi, collage artist, and sobriety advocate, Emily Schranck, or also known as the Empress Emily Tarot. Emily is a manifesting generator with a 6-2 profile, a deeply creative soul, and someone whose chart is woven through with intuition and self love. Emily and I actually met at a local networking gathering, which turned into coffee chats and eventually into readings for each other. She's done tarot readings for me, and I have done a human design readings for her. 2 different modalities, but one really beautiful connection. Today, we're talking about what it means to be a 6-2, specifically right at the edge of turning 30, which in human design is not just a birthday, it's an energetic threshold. And whether you are a 6-2, a manifesting generator, or simply in a season of becoming, this episode is all for you. Emily, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
Thank you so much for having me, Molly. I'm so excited. I'm feeling good. Just had my birthday, so I'm stepping into the last year of my 20s and doing a lot of reflecting, but as of late, there's been a lot of positive change and I'm feeling really tapped in creatively. So I feel good.
Awesome. Do we need to celebrate anything other than your birthday?
Um, Lots of exciting things I feel like are happening. I'm getting married next year. I just got my first freelance writing opportunity like yesterday, 2 days ago. Um,
Wow.
yeah,
Congratulations on that.
thank you. I'm really, really excited. Um, and yeah, I feel like summer's just heating up. There's lots of events going on that I'm really excited about. So should be a good summer.
Fantastic. So that's a really good way to start this. It's like before, you're about to turn 30 next year. And so it's once again, congratulations on all the achievements that are coming in the last part of your 30s.
Hmm.
Um, But before your readings with me, like how did you understand yourself, your creativity, your energy, and your patterns? And now, like you're talking about that reflection, how have you seen it reflected back through your human design chart? Like what's actually shifted in how you relate to yourself?
I would describe my understanding of my creativity prior to understanding the human design as very sporadic. Um, and it was hard to kind of figure out where I fit in to this kind of bigger scheme of creativity in the world where it's easy, especially with social media, to compare yourself to people who like really excel at one thing. Um, and meanwhile, like I've always just been drawn to many different forms of creativity. And so I think I was a little bit in my head about being too far spread out. And since learning more about my design, I'm realizing that it's like completely natural for me and that's exactly how I'm supposed to be moving through the world, which has been like a massive relief and comfort and I feel like I've been able to really embrace that spontaneity with my creativity and just do things as they excite me and not get too hung up on making one thing the overall career.
Yeah. And I remember that too when we first started talking, and we'll get into this in a little bit. That spontaneity is partially your manifesting generator side of being able to be masters at a variety of things, whether that's creative, whether that's moving your body, whether that's, engaging with people and connection. That shows up in different areas of your chart too. But even that 6-2 profile, because if you haven't listened to people that are listening to this episode right now, if you haven't listened to the profile types episode, go back, listen to that. I mentioned all the different lines and a little tidbit about each profile type. But the 6-2, which is what Emily is known as the role model and the hermit. So basically, she's a very wise guide, an old soul. The 6 line, though, is a little tricky because it has 3 different phases and it's about, a timeline, honestly. So as a 6 line moves through their life, they live out different phases. And eventually they turn into this role model where they help the collective. So this first phase really starts at birth and it ends at age 30, which is right where Emily's at. Here, anyone with a sixth line is to act actually like a line three, which is part of my design. That's the experimenter, and people need to try things out, put them down, or even completely walk away when things don't work. So it's a lot of, like I said, experimentation, trial and error, but figuring out what does and doesn't work needs to continue so they can gain additional wisdom. And sometimes that what works and what doesn't is specifically for them or it's for other people as well. Then at age 30, till about 50 is what's called in human design the roof. This is where they lean into more of the observation side. I like to even think of this as like an wise owl sitting on a tree and looking down, waiting for things to happen. Because here they're gaining perspective, not just on life, but they're observing in order to deepen their wisdom and gain even more clarity. The final phase for the sixth line actually starts around age 50 because it's about the Chiron return. Now, we all go through this and it is very life changing for all of us. But for a sixth line, this can feel almost like a death and rebirth in a sense where they come off of that roof or that owl comes down from the tree and it lands in the field. And that's where they really start to embody this role model. Here they embrace and integrate all the lessons that they learned in, phase one and phase two to then showcase that as being the living example and teach others. So, like I said, a 6-2 is an old soul and they have the capacity to turn their truth, their authenticity, into something more by trusting their inner authority. So, overall, Emily is someone who will show others how to live without abandoning themselves for any sort of outer authority. Now, being true to themselves is probably one of the greatest gifts, but it can be a challenge, as like Emily just started talking about earlier, about how they compare themselves to others. It is a challenge for sure, but through these phases, they have to have patience. What sets a 6-2 apart from others is that they're constantly searching for their soulmate. And it's honestly one of my favorite things about this profile. They have a love for truth and desire for perfection. I almost think that like 6-2s could probably write all the romance novels and things for Hallmark that we could ever enjoy and have these wonderful creative endings. That's because they really do enjoy the process of a relationship. That being said, trust is really needed, not just in every relationship, obviously, but for a 6-2, it's extremely important because that's what it needs to survive. So, like I've just said, all these different phases, here is something I want listeners to understand, even though I've already kind of mentioned it. As a 6-2, you've actually been living as a 3-2, basically your whole entire life up until maybe, obviously the next 2 years. So that means a lot of experimentation, trial and error phase that might have assisted with that spontaneity. So when we think about that, with that layer on top of being a manifesting generator, you're also wired to skip steps and move really fast. That's a lot of like learning by doing energy, running all at once on two different speeds. So what has it meant for you to finally name that? And when has that combination actually been your superpower in your creative life?
What my mind is drawn to most strongly right now is my experimentation process with college, honestly. Um,
Mm,
I've always like really excelled in school, like especially with like writing and things like that. But um, so like grades wise, college was not like a difficult experience for me, but for some reason, like the environments of that were really challenging for me. And I ended up only completing a year and a half of school, and this was in two different states. So I think really what I was looking for when I was doing that was to move somewhere different, and I chose the schools I
mhm.
went to because I thought they were places that I wanted to live. And I think I just kind of I wish I had known that like maybe I could have just moved without having to do a whole school thing, but it was a good launching pad. But I think that was a really tough time for me because I was comparing myself a lot and feeling like a failure at times for dropping out. But if I hadn't dropped out, it's like this string of events wouldn't have happened. And like I've thought about going back to school, but it just like would not fit into my life at all anymore. And I'm at the point now where I'm growing something that I'm passionate about and like that's very personal to me. That doesn't require me to go get a degree. So
Yeah.
I guess that's how it's resonating for me right now.
Yeah. And that experimentation with just college is a wonderful example, is that maybe it's not meant for people that really do want to experiment and go back and forth. It is a very structured environment sometimes. Where else have you seen that experimentation show up right now, where you're ending your 20s and about to hit into your 30s?
Honestly, where I feel like I'm seeing a lot of this experimentation show up is having to really put myself out there and like I feel like a lot of the progress I've made is just from talking to people who inspire me or when I see an event going on that seems exciting and I want to be a part of it, like I'm not afraid to like send a message and ask if they would like a tarot reader there. Um, but it's been a lot of like just betting on myself and not knowing for sure what the results of that are going to be. It's, you know, kind of a little bit of rejection therapy too. You don't always get the results you're looking for, but honestly, like it's I'm learning through experimenting like that it's worked out in my favor way more often than it hasn't. So now it's just like a skill.
Well, and then so what I'm loving hearing you say is I recall when we first met too, and I know this is not one of the questions, but it's just really fun to observe you from when we first met and the steps you've taken to experiment um, with not just tarot, but like you did a tarot collage reading for me and it was
Mm-hmm,
wonderful.
mm-hmm,
And how you started incorporating that within your expression of tarot as well as this movement towards I have to show up for myself. And
mm-hmm.
as we keep going, this is going to come up and I can't wait to discuss it, but I want to pause it here just but still highlighting how much this connects with stuff we're going to talk about further in. So the line 2 really does crave solitude and often resist being, called out, kind of pushed out to being themselves. So, how do you personally navigate between your need to retreat and pull into being service or being visible, like you just talked about?
That is something that I feel like I've noticed the friction of more as I've gotten older. I used to really identify as like an extrovert, and I've noticed
Mhm.
how drained my energy can be when I'm constantly and you know, when I outsource my energy too much, I feel it and I really take a hit. So I feel like I've just had to become much more observant of that. I think honestly, mostly through sobriety is how I've learned this, and just reclaiming my energy in that way has been a huge part of that process of inner listening. And it's, you know, put me in a position where I can do that listening and observation, whereas before it wasn't really a part of my language because I was just kind of moving through my life very like on auto almost. Um, but even just last summer, you know, I've been in a committed relationship for we celebrated 4 years in April. And last year I decided to go spend the summer with my grandma in upstate New York on the St. Lawrence River. And that was such like a creative pull for me just to be in nature and to like it's such like this small little remote vacation town. And I just thrived by spending solitude by the water and like with myself, even though I wasn't really creating anything. It was like this big, like restorative time for me.
Yeah, it sounds like the water and that trip
Hmm.
for your summer is just like cleansing out what needed to be removed in order to help you
Hmm.
gain more clarity and move towards solitude.
Yes.
Okay. So now having the experiences that you had and knowing the way your chart you do now, what is one thing you wish someone would have told you about your 6-2 profile when you were younger?
I wish I would have been told that it's okay not to know what you're doing. And that actually a bit of a superpower not to know what you're doing, and that you learn by making mistakes and by, maybe trusting people you shouldn't trust, and by traveling and by doing all these things. I remember being really obsessed with wanting to know what I was supposed to be doing when I was like 19, 20, 21, and not feeling like I was doing things in like this societally acceptable way. And now I'm like,
Mhm.
I'm loving that my life is so unconventional. So I feel like if I'd been told that your path is inherently unconventional, first of all, I
Mm.
don't know if I would have listened, because I don't know if it would have made a difference, but maybe it would have planted some kind of seed and I would have just embraced that a little bit more.
Yeah, of course. That's the one thing that's very interesting with the six and being on top of the manifesting generator. Um, the energy can be so fast moving, sometimes feel like chaos or look like chaos to other people. Um, but there's other areas of your chart that kind of like embrace that. And this is where this self love and this creativity really highlights. So, like during the relationship reading, I mentioned self love quite a bit in your chart. When you
Mhm.
found this out, what did that actually mean to you?
So it's funny because when I met my fiance, we were like just getting to know each other. I remember asking him, I was like, "Do you love yourself?" I was like, because I love myself and I'm always going to put myself first. And like, it was just something I felt that really strongly about at the time. And I needed to say that, and it was a prerequisite for me. I was like, we're going to be on the same page about this or we're not.
Exactly. And actually, you know what? That's I'm going to just have to share your chart right now. All right. So, what's wonderful about Emily's chart, she's talking about this gate 19 right here. And gate 19 is about wanting, or it's also called approach. And here you have to set rules and guidelines um, for yourself and your relationship. And so I discussed this heavily in your reading because this is also an emotional wave that you have.
Mhm.
So it's hilarious because like that you did that with Carter right away. And, you know, we never discussed that. So it's fun.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
here, this self love is also something that's about connection and really desiring connection with others, connection with self in order to really highlight what you're passionate about. Um, and one other thing, when you were talking about speaking up for yourself and embracing authenticity, that's gate 8 here. We actually have never walked through this part of your chart.
Mm.
So gate 8 is called contribution. It's the creative expression through authenticity. It's really embraced and really quite large in your chart. So it's waiting for the right time to express that. It's also when you embrace your authenticity through creative actions, you become that sixth line. Like you're really already hopping into the role model, and other people will see what you're doing, and it gives them a sense of a role model of someone who to follow or have as leading by example. Because with gate 8, not only can you express yourself, not only can you be creative and authentic, but you're showing people that in a group, in society, in collective at large, that you can still be yourself and it actually strengthens the group. So individualization is wonderful to have.
Mhm.
So when I say that, like what comes up for you?
I think it reminds me of my process with just getting comfortable with like putting myself out there online. I
Mm,
have been extremely transparent with my relationship to my sobriety and like what that process has been like for me, very vocal about like milestones. And, um, I've had people reach out to me and just tell me that by me talking about my experiences with that it's like opened them up to questioning their own relationships with alcohol. I've had people come and ask me for advice about like how do I even begin, like where do I get started, or just like thanking me for being open about that because maybe in their lives, like people aren't talking about it. And so,
Yeah.
and out in the world too, it's like I feel like I wear my heart on my sleeve a lot, and I'm always willing to, share about kind of some of these harder lessons I've had to learn because I do think other people benefit when you speak from the heart.
Exactly. And the more you keep talking, the more I'm like, okay, so there's three things to mention. I'll start here. Even you having an undefined spleen, I mentioned this in your reading, but this is where the themes of the spleen, which is like the two that you're talking about, well, the three, there's time, intuition, and health are like the ones that are coming up for me right now for you. And so the fact that you decided that alcohol is just not your thing and
Hmm.
being sober is way better, this health is all here in the spleen. And when you do that for you, it really kicks up your intuition. It really allows you to access parts of you and parts of others, whether that's like a psychic sort of connection or even connecting with others, um, or beings in a mediumship way, that it has potential here because of it, um,
Hmm.
as well as that influence of areas in your chart and speaking passionate about it comes through your other emotional wave of 35 to 36. And 35 wants variety in life. It's actually called the gate of change, gate of progress. um, you want so many different experiences. You want to live them to the fullest. And here it's where you gain wisdom from those experiences and communicating that with depth. And that depth really comes from gate 36. This has two names. It can be called darkening of the light, and in other ones it's called crisis. But that's just because it is so emotional, in the deepest and loving way. So it can be really intense for some people if they have it, but it's never a thing to be shunned or shamed for. It's just because this gate, this part of you, wants to experience life at emotional depth that others may not have. So
Hmm.
you using and vocalizing from this channel is really helpful for not just for your own personal expression, but for the collective. And so like it's wonderful to know that you do that already when talking
Hmm.
about sobriety.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think just being really open about what my whole process with like self-love has been like has I've noticed that ripple effect, and when I'm putting myself out there online too, I feel like people respond so well to authenticity. It's like what they're looking for,
Yeah.
especially right now, because
Oh, yeah.
we're trying to be palatable in a society that is like not serving us. And I think it's really like refreshing when people talk about their struggles, but also like how they've grown from those things too. And I think that restores a sense of hope for people that we really need right now.
Oh, it's totally. And your perspective for sure needs to be shared. Your experiments that you're gathering right now are going to be so critical in the next phase of the 6-2. Um, but who knows where they will go.
Mhm.
So, how would you describe that creative identity, and has that shifted for you over time?
My creative identity, I think right now is like super connected to nature. And I feel like that's where I draw a lot
Yeah.
of inspiration from. That's where I find a lot of restoration from. But it's always been a very like spiritual exploration for me as well. I think being able to kind of tangibly reflect inner experiences I'm having is just like therapeutic almost.
Yeah.
But it's so dynamic that it's hard to kind of, try to describe what the identity is. I feel like I'm in a shifting moment right now where it's becoming something that is bigger than it used to be. So, um, like I define myself as many different things: a writer, a tarot reader, a collage artist, and like a speaker, and like a content creator. And I feel like it's all sort of coming together right now.
Yeah, you're because of your design though, like you're multi-passionate and you're able to have a variety. And the beautiful thing is that you're moving away from having like one identified label
Hmm.
that society pushes us into. And so it makes sense why you crave that time in nature because your line two really needs solitude to access your genius. And there seems to be this, like, as we're talking about it, there's a deep self love and actually honoring that need, that space, rather than pushing through. How has protecting your creative space actually become an act of self love?
I feel like they've just gone really hand in hand for me. And I guess I'll use a recent example. I have been working in the service industry since I was 16 years old. And I went through a transition phase recently where the hours that I was working changed. So I was working days for 2 years and was getting really up really early in the morning, getting home mid-afternoon and zero energy. I didn't have the reserves for my creativity that I
Hmm.
needed, but I didn't realize how much that was like depleting me and why I felt so exhausted and like, why my abundance felt smaller than it should be. Like I felt I was having financial struggles that just didn't make sense. And the minute that I changed just the time of day that I was implementing the supplemental income, everything has opened up for me in such a big way. And like I've been able to time max, and now I'm using my days to really turn my art and my creativity into my full-time job. And that shift recently has occurred where I feel like now the restaurant work is more supplemental income and this is more of my full-time job. Um, and that I needed that space. I needed that time here during the day alone when my fiance was at work. And we have separate bedrooms. Like I have my own little bubble here where I can create and I have the time. Um, so yeah, that's a big shift that has happened as of late.
Yeah. And honestly, like that sometimes is the best way to shift a manifesting generator or a generator is to do the things that you're passionate about early in the morning or like do one thing you really love, do something you don't really care for, do something
Hmm.
you really love, and then check that email or whatnot. And so, what it does, it really builds up a lot of energy around the passion, and it can create more energy physically for the person as they move throughout the day. And the
Hmm.
fact that you even have your own space, a way to be creative, and in a sense, like really using that line too to hermit, it's compounding on each other. So no wonder you're starting to really see this amazing, not only like self growth with like self love even more and creativity, but the abundance and the happiness that really is part of you.
Hmm. Yeah, it feels like I've unlocked something I've been needing for a while. So I'm like, okay, thank
Oh,
goodness.
for sure. And since you are someone who, like I said, I showed in your chart that you're highly intuitive, you're creative. Do you think your creativity has been the thing that's really been calling you back into these like moments of being a hermit?
Yes, and I don't know if that's always something I've had like the language for, but I think
Mm.
it's, operated on a level that is almost like intrinsic to my survival in a way. And I know that, you know, I mean, I'm remembering COVID and I'm remembering
Mm.
living with an ex and how bad I needed space and how bad I needed that creativity. And it was just kind of that was the time when I found Hannah, our mutual medium, who was really the person who helped get me on this path of like finding tarot. And like at that time, I was integrating journaling and like collaging and yoga. Like it was all happening at the same time. And like it was just like I needed that stuff to survive. And now these are like tools that are just intrinsic to my happiness.
Yeah. Sometimes when you speak, Emily, like I'm like, oh, the role model is already showing up. This wise old soul sage is just here already.
Hmm.
Um, it's wonderful to see. And like, we have been talking about the creating so much when we think about the intuitiveness, like with tarot, it's a big part of how you move through the world. Like if anybody that follows Emily, you see that on your social media all the time. So, how do you see your creative and intuitive practices becoming part of your own self love?
I I always like I can't separate them because it's like I was drawn to tarot because it was something that I needed for my self-love. And it's something I
Mm.
share with people because it has been so transformative for me as a self-love practice. And like when I was learning, it was through my own journaling experiences and like a back and forth conversation with myself that I developed like language for my spirituality.
Mm.
So it's all like interconnected. And yeah, it's hard to describe, but I think when I sit down with people, that's ultimately what I want them to walk away with is this permission to love themselves more, this permission to listen to their intuition and to make choices that feel good for them, even if it's not something that feels acceptable or feels maybe things feel hard to say or feel hard to do. Like, I want to help you see that, like, choosing yourself is always an option and it's always the best option.
Oh, for sure. The first reading that you gave me, I sit down for a reading with you, and in there, you pulled the Hermit card and you told me you're going to be studying and learning and needing time away. And I was like, no, I have so much going on. I think this was like I don't know, I think it was like in the spring or maybe late summer. I can't remember. I just
Hmm.
remember
Hmm.
it felt hot.
It was hot. I was just
But
gonna say it was hot.
it was hot. Okay, so maybe it was like July or August, something
Yeah,
like
who
that.
knows?
But what I ended up doing was taking my first true fall and winter sabbatical. Like I paused my business
Mm.
and it was wonderful. I was able to really just like breathe and care for myself and have things aligned so differently. And I think back that if I would have never gotten a reading from you at that time, I would have tried to push through and eventually I would burn out like I have
Mm.
in the past.
Hmm.
Like that was when I was starting to really trying to incorporate human design more for myself than just learning it. And it was before I even integrated into my coaching practice. So if I would have never taken that time off, if you would have never said, oh, you need this and you need that, I don't think I would be personally where I'm at right now. So
Wow.
I want to 100% say like your
Wow.
guidance of your own self love and your own experimentation really has been very liberating for other people.
Wow.
So
Thank you for sharing that. It's always nice to hear like concrete feedback because a lot of the interactions I have with people, I see them, I talk to them for 10 or 15 minutes and I never see them again. So, thank you.
right. Of course. So then anybody that has had a reading with Emily and things have felt better since then, you should actually go chat and talk to her about it.
Please, please, please call me. Please update me. I've been thinking about you.
Oh my gosh. So then, a lot of people do struggle to see their creative expression as something they actually deserve. And you've really been embracing it. How or has there been a moment where you gave yourself permission, full on permission to be creative, as intuitive, as deeply yourself as your chart says you're designed to be?
I think really just with the birth of Empress Emily Tarot and even just like creating my social media accounts and like making it a thing,
Mm.
that was so cringe for me at first and super uncomfortable. It feel like took years to really like just lock in, hone in, and not be afraid of being perceived anymore. But that was a huge leap of faith that I took, just because it's such a vulnerable thing, and like just to post your artwork online, to share your thoughts, to share your words, to share kind of the nitty gritty things that you're working through during a healing time.
Mm.
It's very, very vulnerable. And so I feel like just by doing that, I was just honoring that like it was more important for me to like move through the discomfort of being perceived than it was to not share at all. Like I just that never felt like an option not to, I guess, at the end of the day.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. And I'm going to show you where that's at. So, all of that is right here. We never went through this. This gate six, that is 70% of who I am. And it has a bad name. It's called conflict or friction. But the more that I have embraced this gate. Why am I right there? 6.
Hmm.
Um, this really is about intimacy. It's about vulnerability. It's about going first and showing up in a way that puts our experience, our expression out there in such an emotional way. It can have a little bit of criticism from people. It can rub people the wrong way if they're not ready. And it's not necessarily a bad thing to rub people the wrong way. It can kind of wake them up. So
Mm.
you having gate 6 and putting yourself out there can really be, and it being vulnerable is part of this contribution. It's part of the 35 to 36, to really stand out there. And then even your love of body for gate 46, it really hones with how much you care for yourself, and showing that up online is really, um it is part of the way of you starting to embrace like the transition of you becoming this role model, right now, speaking wisdom, embracing that experimentation. But like I said, technically in human design, you don't become a role model until like 50, but you are such already someone with a deeply passionate voice for the things that you care about,
Mhm.
that who knows, maybe with what you already have, who knows how far you're going to go with this role model in the future.
Yeah, I definitely can already envision so many things that I want to do. I talk about writing a memoir. I want to start my own podcast at some point. Like, I think I'm just embracing like my voice, above all else. And that feels really exciting.
Yeah. And how that manifests for you in future, we shall see.
Hmm.
So, speaking of the future, one of the most beautiful things of being the 6-2 in your life, all of it with the experimentation, the pivots, the creative detours, has been building toward a version of you that others will generally look to, like that role model I already said.
Hmm.
So, how has self love been part of trusting that process, even when it didn't look linear on the outside?
I think like the self love has genuinely been sort of a subconscious force at times, um, and has almost like it almost feels like I've time traveled in a way and like urged past versions of myself to make certain changes. And I haven't always known why. I've always really felt like it was something like a force either beneath me or outside of me or something that has like pushed me through really difficult moments. When I was in high school, was doing drugs, I was drinking, I was very reckless with my life. And the fact that I like survived some of these moments the way I did, like I don't always know how that happened. And but I remember just like, feeling like, no, there's something like important that I'm supposed to be doing in the world. And I didn't always know what that meant. I didn't have the language for it. I had no idea what that would look like. But I think that's been kind of just like subconscious buzzing energy that has been self love and just knowing that like I'm worth it and that like I am a good person and like I have something I need to contribute. So it's more a force than it is like a concept.
Yeah. And I'm not going to share her the screen again of like her chart, but her identity center and her heart center are connected, as well as they're defined, which means they're defined. And so someone with an identity center that's defined, they have such a deep well of self-love already. And I know I highlighted different areas of the chart for that without really touching into that center. But that gives you a direction in life, that gives you groundedness in self alone. And then with having the heart center defined, it gives this sense of willpower and knowing that you add value already,
Mm-hmm.
and communicating that, just knowing to yourself, is huge when moving through any sort of life transition experience that you might not feel is right for you at that time. So even though we're not 30 yet, we're still in our 20s here, turning
Mm-hmm.
30. like I said, for 6-2 means that you're closing out a chapter that was literally designed to be very messy and experimental.
Hmm.
But so much of self love is about releasing who you thought you had to be. What are you finally giving yourself permission to let go? And what are you claiming about yourself as you step into this next phase soon?
Mm. I think some of what I've been learning to let go of is is perfectionism maybe, and I feel like that's also something
Mm,
that you've talked about with my chart and that I know is like something I battle with, but it's um I think I've had to work through being acceptable or doing things in a way that like makes sense to other people, and I feel like that's just something I don't care about anymore. I'm just leaving behind this idea that like a conventional path would have ever been better for me, but it's something that I did battle with for years, and even as recent as like probably a year ago was considering going back to school still, and just I feel like as I'm entering my 30s, I'm just like, nah, like my life is just gonna look different than it does for other people, and that's really exciting. And I think in a healing way, the self-love thing has also been incredibly like hard work, and it's been
mm,
painful, extremely painful. And like the self-love, it's not like all love and light. It's very intense moments of confronting yourself and taking a good look at your self-limiting beliefs and examining them and trying to figure out where they've come from. And I think through going to therapy and like doing EMDR, like I'm currently like
mm.
ditching feelings of unworthiness and feeling like I'm not good enough and that I'm a bad person and like crazy things that have just been with me for so long, that have been unbelievably painful to sit with, but like so necessary. And like I'm just really proud of myself for like doing that because I think that's it's stuff that some people can't ever face in their lives, you know?
For sure. And EMDR is hard work.
Ugh,
It's not just tapping that you find on TikTok.
no.
It is above and beyond. And I know I've mentioned this on a podcast before because I've had guests that either are licensed in it or have actually gone through EMDR. I did too as well. Like you need to find someone if you are interested in that type of therapy that is licensed to do it, not just watching people
Hmm.
on YouTube or wherever, because that will keep you in a place that's grounded and really help you move through those things. And they give you such wonderful tools to even then come back to yourself and do the other additional hard work between those therapy sessions.
Hmm.
Like you said, self love is something, and I personally feel that, you know, it's hard for everyone, but then our
Hmm.
experiences, the things that make us really unique and different, and the things that we see, the reality we live, causes those moments of self love to be slightly different, or they could be a societal thing. So, really taking that time has really allowed you to let go of things so much younger than most people ever do, like you
Hmm.
mentioned. And so, as you step into that next phase, it's like, it's not only is it only onward and upward from here, it's like now you might find those really buried deep areas that you thought were already gone and being like, well, I know I have the strength to take through this, but it might take a little bit longer to get this one to fully go away.
Hmm. Yikes.
It's not a yikes. You just do so well with growth. You really do.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like I'm willing to do the hard work, and so it's become easier over time because I can see tangible results of how my life does get better, and I things improve substantially when I allow myself to go there. Hmm.
Especially like that wisdom that we keep bringing up with the role model. And, that energy isn't supposed to even fully open up until the Chiron return for you around 50. So knowing that's where you're headed, how does it change the way you think about experimentation, the creativity you have, and the self worth work you're doing right now?
I think it's mostly it's just like really affirming that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, you know, and because these are things I've felt, and just seeing it reflected in something tangible like that, I think just gives me the thumbs up to like just continue going down this path. But I think having that be the goal, it's like an extra level of motivating energy that could potentially help pull me out of a rut if I'm ever in one, you know, and um, having something outside of myself and something bigger to aspire to, I think will be kind of a guiding force. And it already has been. So just like, it just makes sense, you know?
Yeah. And when you were saying that, like my heart was just like lighting up for you. And just,
Oh,
it's most of the time that happens when I talk to you. It's just like this, it's almost as if your self love pours out to other
oh,
people in ways that we just don't expect. And even if
yeah.
it's through a camera on screen.
Yes.
Um, you guess? Well, in person, it's
I
also
said
there.
yes.
Oh, you said yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So if someone is listening and they feel like they are recognizing themselves in what you shared today, maybe they're a 6-2, maybe they're a manifesting generator figuring out their energy. What is one thing you want them to hear right now?
Do it messy, do it bad, do it wrong, do it however long it takes you, and just like have fun. I feel like the ultimate goal with taking care of yourself is to allow yourself to enjoy life more. So, as hard as it can be to do that work, the goal is to feel lighter. It's to feel like more yourself. And we are ultimately here, I believe, to co create with the universe and have a good time. So, like, just incorporating as much fun as you can into the process and not allowing yourself to get stuck in what success looks should look like. It's going to free up all this space for you to live authentically.
Yeah. The play is so important. I love
Hmm.
that you brought that in. What are you working on or moving towards right now that you're genuinely excited about? Because there is a lot, but share as you may.
I mean, just this past week, something really exciting happened. So, first of all, I'll start by saying this. I have an event coming up in St. Louis at the end of the month. It's Monday, June 29th, and it's going to be at Good Strangers on Cherokee, which is like my new favorite coffee shop. Really good vibes. But I'm hosting it with a new friend. Her name is Lauren Ash, and just crazy universe stuff. But she's somebody I've been following on TikTok. She's an astrologer who I've been following online for years and like really admiring and looking up to. And then several months ago, found out that she was local and that we had a mutual friend. And so, like, I was able to kind of introduce myself to her, and I invited her to put on this event with me that is all about moving through your Saturn return. So I'm glad that we're doing this podcast right now because astrologically speaking, it also really aligns with this place in my life that I'm at right now of deep transition and transformation within my creative realm. Like that's how Saturn in Aries is showing up in my astrology chart. So like it all really reflects each other. But Saturn can be a time that is fearful for some because it can really uproot certain things in your life. And there's a lot of big change and it comes fast and hard for 2.5 years or so as you move into your early 30s. So we're hosting an event to kind of give people a survival guide to work through that time. Um, and, we met up the other day and she offered me basically a recurring freelance writing gig to write articles for horoscope.com and astrology.com, where she's an editor. So all of a sudden now I'm like about to be a paid writer, which is like everything I could have asked for. So that is something I'm like kicking and screaming and like so excited to like just see where that goes. But hell yeah, maybe I'll get to quit my other part-time job at some point this year or next year. We'll see.
This is lovely. I mean, you
Yeah.
said it earlier that you got a freelancing job, but this whole story of how it came to be, wow.
it's very kismet, like, and it just makes me feel like everything that I've been working towards is paying off and is going in the direction that I want it to be. But that's been difficult to see at times. And I think I've been so like unhappy in the service industry for so many years, but it's been something I've needed financially. And then um I've always just been like, when is it gonna happen? When is it gonna happen? Like, when can I leave? I can't tell you how many readings I've had where that's been my exact question is when, when do I get to make this my full-time job? And like, I think just
Yeah.
I'm making peace with the fact that, I mean, and you mentioned patience earlier too. Like, it is happening and it's happening in bursts. And I'm going through a burst right now where it's solidifying in a new way.
Yeah, and that is part of also your gate 36 with your emotional wave to 35. Gate 36 doesn't have patience sometimes. It likes to like hurry up and like get the emotional feelings now. And gate 35 is also like, well, I need variety in life and I want change to happen now because I'm bored. Both
Mm,
of them are like wanting to move, but for
mhm.
different reasons. And when they come together, they're really passionate about the variety things in life and the experiences. So you're getting to experience one of those, like you said, right now, and be able to later on even speak from this moment that you're going through in a way that's going to still show up for you in a different way or show up for someone else, because that's what you're, designed to do.
It's exciting
Well,
stuff.
I know it's really exciting. Well, thank you once again for coming on the podcast today. Please tell everyone where they can find you. I will have all of your links in the show notes for everyone, but
Mhm.
still tell them where they can find you.
Sure. I'm most active on Instagram right now, and my handle is underscore Empress Emily underscore. But I post weekly collective readings there. I share about all the public events I'm working on. That's where you'll like most likely first hear about articles I'll be releasing. And it's just the best way to stay in touch with me in a personal way. And I'm also on TikTok under the same username, so underscore Empress Emily underscore. Um, and then Molly, I'm sure we'll link my website where you can book a reading with me and experience my writing or my collage making firsthand. And that would be empressemillytarot.as.me.
Yes. And I highly recommend getting one of those readings. Like I said, I gave you guys an example of what that really meant for me and how that moved through and showed up for me. As well as the collage reading is very helpful because you actually not only get to see the collage that she makes, she actually writes. So you get to see her writing about you and what you're currently going through and what the card said for her. So if today's discussion with Emily and her chart have made you curious about your design, you can honestly download your chart and an 11-page energy report on my website to learn more about the basics of your design. And that would be like your energy type, your profile type, how you're meant to move in the world. But if you want to go deeper, there's just a few ways you can do that. You can either book a human design reading, you can explore one-on-one coaching to use your design to help you move through towards a specific goal. You can also apply for mentorship to experiment with your design and start living it in your everyday life. Now, I will say that I do have a limited availability for the rest of the summer, as if you've been listening, you know that my husband and I are moving to Portland, like in at the end of August, mid-August or so. So by the time August hits, both my individual human design readings and relationship readings will be paused. At the time of this recording, I only have 2 one-on-one coaching spots left, as well as 1 mentorship spot. I won't be accepting new clients starting August 1st because I'm really going to prioritize the clients I currently have, especially during a busy month and during the move. But I'm going to reopen all those services in October. So if you want to get any of this started for you, I recommend booking a connection call or apply for mentorship. Both of those links, or all the links, like I've mentioned, are going to be in the show notes. As always, I am so excited to have a guest joining me because this conversations never get old. Like they're just so expansive and so much more of a lived experience of human design is so wonderful to see, whether that's something that people have embraced for years or have just started noticing or experimenting. So, Emily, I'm really thankful for you to come on and share your experience and give everyone a taste of you.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Molly. And for anybody who hasn't experienced Molly's services one-on-one like I have, like you're just as thorough as one person could ever be, and your passion for what you do shines through exponentially. So, yeah, book with Molly, y'all. She knows her shit.
I love to know my shit. I love to obsess over it. And yeah. Thank you so much for your kind words. It really does mean a lot to me. So, all right, ladies, thank you for listening, and I will be back to chat with you again soon.